We are Saints in the South, your source for gospel growth and good times. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Saints in the South. Today, we've got four very special guests with us today. Was hoping to have a fifth guest. Maybe he will be able to join us a little later. I don't know. He ended up getting tied up in some different appointments and everything. But that is Troy Davis. But who we have here with us this evening, we've got Mr. Charlie Moore, Shad Stormant, Stacy Tyre, and Drake Stormant. And if you are watching, as you can see at the bottom of Drake's name there, he has Ironman next to his name. And he is not the only one that is deserving of that title. The reason that we are having these individuals on is because they have participated in and completed and are a part of a very small group, actually less than 1% of the world population. They are all Ironmen, or they are an Ironman. So that's what we've got them here today to talk about their experience, a mighty feat that they have been able to accomplish. And we'll go ahead and address the elephant in the room. I had mentioned on a couple of different of the podcasts that I was participating with some individuals in training for an Ironman. And so you might ask, well, Jackson, why don't you include yourself with them? Well, the reason is because I did not finish it, didn't complete it. Now, I could give you a list of excuses, but I'm not going to, because that's all they are excuses, right? In completing them. So I had a guy that showed up at that works out at the Y every morning, and he was kind of keeping track of us, David, and he would check in and see how we were doing and everything. And I ended up seeing him at my son's wrestling tournament last week. So he came up to me. He said, "Hey, man, so tell me about it. How was it? How was the Ironman?" I said, "Well, I didn't get to do it. Didn't do it." So anyway, my wife wanted to jump in there and kind of give give the reasons and everything. But again, they just end up being excuses. So, but let's get to why we're talking about this thing and who we're talking with. So the first question is, who is the mastermind behind this whole thing? Raise your hand or say aye, or who is it?
Yeah, 100% Charlie Moore.
Charlie Moore. So Charlie Moore, why don't you kick us off here and tell us where this wild hair came from to sign up for an Ironman?
So I did a marathon about probably close to 10 years ago. I remember after doing the marathon, somebody told me about an Ironman, or what an Ironman entails. What each leg of the swim, bike, and run were. And I remember thinking, because I just finished the marathon, and I thought, it seems impossible. I knew how hard the marathon was, and I'm like, there's no way that somebody can really swim, then bike, then do just what I just got through doing. I said, I'm whipped by the marathon. So seriously, for a decade, it's kind of been on my mind. And I thought, I really didn't even think about doing one. And January of almost a year ago, it resurfaced when one of the companies I worked with had the Iron Cowboy as the keynote speaker, who was the guy that was a Canadian guy that did 101 Ironmans in 101 days. And anyway, I read the book and I said, I want to do it. I don't want to be competitive. I just want to complete it. And so anyway, that's kind of what kicked off the idea. That was just kind of a bucket list thing that I said I wanted to prove to myself before I got too old that I could do it. And so that's what spurred it.
And did you say, I kind of want to keep this to myself, or do I want to do this with people, with other individuals?
Well, you guys know me. Maybe some of the listeners do not know me, but I am a social exerciser. I won't do anything by myself. And so I started picking off the people that I thought would do it with me. And surprisingly, several of these nutcases said yes. And so, so that, I mean, really, I never had any intentions of doing it by myself. Never.
Okay. So we'll go with Stacy and then Drake and then Shad as far as, did you get an invitation from Mr. Charlie there, and what was your thought process in signing up?
Yes, I did get a call from Charlie. Might have been a text. I can't remember. But a little backstory. I first got into triathlon in 2010. Signed up for the local little class at the Y with Mr. Moy and Cheryl Monroe taught. I think it was about our second or third class, and it was training for a sprint triathlon, just kind of get into it. It was kind of a couch to triathlon, and they give us a CD back when you used to burn CDs. Mr. Moy told us, he said, if you ever think you can't do this, watch this. So I come home and put it in the computer and watched it, and it was the story of Dick and Rick Hoyt, the son and the dad that pushed his son, handicapped son, and they'd done a bunch of Ironmans. And that's when I first, I guess, got introduced to Ironman. I seen the Ironman, I was like, just put the thought in the back of my head, and ever since then, it's just been, but never acted on it, never, it was always a goal. Back in 2016, I did get talked into doing a half Ironman, and then I was going to be 40. That was in September. I was going to be 40 in February, so I was like, well, I'll ramp up my training, do a full before my 40. I put that as a goal. But as things happened, life got in the way, and 2 weeks before the half, I was hunting a job, so I did complete the half and then hung my bike up. Man, I've ridden my bike maybe twice till Charlie called me, and I got my bike out, and I told my wife, I'm going to call her. I said, if I'm ever going to do it, now's the time, because Charlie will hold me accountable, and he did.
Absolutely.
You,
all right. Yeah. All right, Drake, what you got?
So I personally didn't get invited from Charlie. I kind of got roped into this a little bit different way. When I first, go back to the beginning like everybody else, it's been several years since I got into triathlon. Shad actually got me on a bike. He started cycling first, and so we go ride together. And then eventually I found out about triathlon, and I talked him into signing up with one over in Jekyll, and we did our first one together. And that sprint distance, that 400-yard swim, about whipped me. And I thought, I don't know if this is for me, but we kept on going. We signed up for a few more smaller ones, and then did a couple half Ironman, and those were tough enough. And I'd set a goal that next year I would do the full Ironman. And Shad called me up towards the beginning of the year and said, hey, there's a couple folks over here in Waycross who are signing up to do the full Ironman, and we can't let them do it. He said, I can't let them do it before I do. So he signed up, and I said, well, I'm planning on doing it next year. So, y'all have fun. And I hung up the phone, and I went and I talked to my wife, and I said, I can't let Shad do it before me. So I went and cleaned the bank account out to sign up for the Ironman. The things ain't cheap. And so that's pretty much how I got roped into doing it this year. And then luckily I had this great group of guys to train with, the little that I was able to train.
Very good. Shad?
Well, so for me, gosh, I really don't remember. I think that one that Drake was talking about, the turtle crawl on St. Simon's, was the first one that I ever did as well, as far as a triathlon. I'd been riding my bike probably for 10 years before that. And at some points doing a lot of cycling, and then schedule and whatnot got me off the bike, pretty much completely for a few years. But yeah, starting that turtle crawl, and that was fun, and the sprint distances were good. And I had actually just done the half Ironman in Panama City in May of this year, and got back to Waycross. And the next Sunday at church, Charlie said, I've been thinking about maybe doing an Ironman, and here I was thinking I had bragging rights for all of Waycross for having done the half Ironman. And he said, I'm doing the full Ironman in November. I said, well, so am I. so, so that's kind of what got me into signing up for this Ironman.
Very good. So let me ask all of you. And let's, for those that may not know what an Ironman is. Okay, so it's 2 point what on the swim? 2.4. 2.4 on the swim, and then 112 on the bike, 112 miles on the bike, and then a 26.2 marathon at the end, right?
Yeah.
So that's and they estimate the cutoff time is 18 hours. Is that right? 17, 18 hours cutoff time?
Yep.
Something like that. So it's I mean, it basically takes you all day, right, to complete an Ironman. What is it? And this is for any of you to jump in there. What is it that kind of drove you to challenge yourself in such a way? What is attractive about that? About putting yourself through the amount of training that's required to do that, and then to complete the Ironman.
Well, I'll if y'all don't mind, I'll start that. So for me, a big part, really what got me to sign up for the half Ironman, which is probably where this journey started, was that, like I said, my schedule was pretty wild and for a while. And I kind of through that time had to let myself get out of shape. I was in pretty decent shape. And then for several years, I was busy enough that I didn't have time to be consistent with exercising, and realized that I was pretty out of shape, and thought, man, I really want to, when my kids have kids, I don't want to be the grandparent that sits on the couch and watches them play. I want to be able to be up and be playing with them. And so I knew I had to get back into doing something. So that was really what kind of got me started. And then signing up for the half Ironman gave me an impetus to really train. And then, like I said, then it was pride that carried me to the full Ironman, which it humbled me. It took care of that pride.
All right. Anybody else?
I don't know if it's completely for this reason. I don't even know if I really know why, but some of it is, I wanted to show that to my kids that we are capable of doing hard things. And if we're willing to put in the hard work and the hard effort, that we can achieve great things that most other people will never do.
Absolutely. That's good.
Yeah, that was the same with me. I mean, I kept telling my boys, I said, I'm just trying to show y'all anything's possible. Put your mind to it.
It's a touch of stupidity, I think.
Yeah.
But I really did think, at some point during the training, I thought, man, am I crazy? Why am I getting up at 3:30 and 4 to do some of these? But again, like everybody else, it's just something in you just being able to push yourself and challenge yourself to the point to see, what you're capable of. And like Drake said, to know that, especially, like I started out with the whole marathon versus doing everything then a marathon, is that you can do some pretty tough stuff if you've got the grit to go after it.
So let's get into the training a little bit. How many of you who hired a professional trainer? All right, so we got Charlie and Stacy hired a professional trainer. Okay, and then so Shad and Drake, I guess you did not.
I didn't hire a professional trainer, but I did buy a training plan from a professional coach.
Okay, all right.
I did neither, but I often trained with Charlie and Stacy and just piggybacked off of whatever they were doing.
Off of what they had, yeah. Okay, very good. So Charlie, if you want to start us out, talk about the training again. How far out did you start the training? Prior November 4th was the Ironman, right?
That's
November
right.
4th. Okay, so how far out did you start?
I think we started 8 months ago. I think we started in March, if I remember right. And and I did hire a guy. So yeah, March, 8 months.
And did pretty much everybody start approximately 6 to 8 months ago or so?
So November 6th of last year was the first day that I started really, not necessarily training for that, but actually starting to train again.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, so I'll tell you, this may get off, hopefully not off topic too much, but I think it's interesting just to show,
Yep.
like you said, doing hard things, what you can do. So that day, November 6th, was the day I decided I was going to start getting healthy again and start training. So I said, I'm going to just run a mile as a baseline and figure out where I'm at. And I could barely finish the mile. Like it hurt to finish the mile, and it was not quick. I could probably pull up my Strava and look back and see what it was, but it was slow. It was a slow mile, and I could barely finish it.
Wow.
And so that's when I started. And then obviously training increased a little bit from there, but that was honestly it hurt my pride and it scared me a little bit that because I thought I actually was planning to go out and run a 5K to test and see where my fitness was. And after a mile, I was done.
So how long did it take you to run that mile?
If y'all want to talk, give me like 3 minutes and I'll find it on Strava. I'll tell you exactly what it was.
Okay.
Drake, how long ago did you start training? I didn't. Drake lives in a different city than we do, and so he trained on his own a good bit. I was just wondering.
So for the full Ironman, probably about June. I've done the half Ironman the past 3 years in a row, so training really never ended for that. I don't know that I trained nearly. Well, I know for a fact that I didn't train nearly like I should have done. If I look back on my Training Peaks app, there's a bunch of red days with missed workouts, or it wouldn't took me quite so long to finish as it did, and I would have been a little bit lighter than I am now. But yeah, I've been pretty much continuing for over the past 3 years, really.
Gotcha. Stacy, how many hours in the day would you end up having to train, whether it was running, biking, swimming?
Towards the end, let's see, probably what last 2 or 3 months, I would say, when it was pretty well ramped up, we were averaging somewhere around 2 hours a day. Wouldn't you say, Charlie? Minimum of an hour. I mean, on swim days, Tuesdays and Thursdays was swim. So just to run down, Mondays, Wednesdays were usually either like a 30, 45-minute run and then an hour and a half bike. Tuesdays and Thursdays were swim. I usually only had an hour to swim because of the pool hours. And then Fridays were long runs. Saturdays were long rides. So.
What's the long run and a long ride, Stacy?
The long runs were the longest were what, 2 hours, a little 2.5, 2:15, something like that. I think the most I ever done was 2 because my schedule just wouldn't allow the longer. I had to get to work, and then the longest ride was 5 hours. I think I had a 6-hour schedule, but I've never done it. Not the smartest decisions, but I did cut it, and like Charlie, I did cut short. I think Charlie cut one exercise the whole 8 months. I think he cut short.
So I know Stacy, and I'll let him mention his occupation if he wants to, but I know with his occupation, I mean, he's not sitting behind a desk, so Stacy would get up, do those long runs and everything, and then turn around and be on his feet for the rest of the day. Right. Yeah. What was that like for you?
That was rough. And I had told Charlie that, I didn't want to get hurt. As a UPS delivery driver, that was I remember there was one day I went to the airport one night. I think I charged Charlie about 11 o'clock on the way home, and something was coming up. He's like, I got to get up early in the morning. I said, well, I'll be there. So I think I got home at 11, and I had to get up at 2:30 to meet him because we were for me to commute to the Y. I think we were starting at 3. So I think I got about 2.5, 3 hours of sleep, and then went in. I'm like, it'll be all right. Well, I had a 10-hour day that day, so I got off at 11 o'clock that night, so it just there for a few days. It was rough. Now, what you don't know, Jackson, is the last month I did transfer out of delivery, and I'm a supervisor now. So
did you? All right. So you took that role. Very good. Well, congratulations to you, man.
I told my wife, I said, had I not been training for this Ironman, I'd have probably tried to stick it out on the truck because I thought I'd be a lot younger. But I think the combination between the training and the work told me I ain't quite as young as I thought I was, because I was sore. I was sore, and well, when you were training with us, the first little bit, I would come in there and work out with y'all, and then I'd do CrossFit on my lunch hour,
Right.
and work, and that bit me a few times. It hurt my training, so I finally just cut all that out because it was, I was just staying so sore. It was affecting my bike, and I was just trying to get to the finish line. That was the ultimate goal. However, I had to do it. So the body held up. I did seek some medical advice that last week, but they brought me through thanks to Charlie over there. Everything's thanks to Charlie here. You'll get a pattern here. Charlie Moore. Charlie Moore. Not just Charlie, but Charlie Moore.
That's right. That's right. So Shad, what was your hour? Did you find it?
It was about an hour. You're right.
It was about an hour.
No, I'm just kidding. It was 1340.
Okay, 1340.
Yeah.
So at what during all this training, did you ever find yourself wanting to quit, saying this is too much? This for any of you. You've heard this is too much for me. Got too much going on. Life's getting in the way. Things like that. What's going through your mind as you're doing this amount of training?
Yes, definitely. I get to the end of the week and I look back at my calendar and realize that I didn't train at all that week. It was getting closer and closer to race day, and I said, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish this thing. What's the point of even going? But thankfully, my wife was there to give me good counsel, and she said, "Well, you've already paid for everything. You can't get your money back, so at least go and get your shirt.
Right."
With your name on it and go, do what you can. And so, that's what I did.
Yeah, there was a few days that I was going to just lay in the bed, and my wife would be like, "You're not going to leave Charlie there to train by himself." So she kicked me out of the bed a few times. Honestly, I would have just not showed up. And then I didn't show up a few times. I would always text and, but I would say I was canceling on them, but in my mind, I was trying to justify it by that. I was trying not to get hurt, trying not to blow a knee or something out, or just something because of my job. And but I think a lot of it was the fact that 6 days a week was a lot,
Right.
Yeah.
So I won't lie and say that it was all, I think I did skip out just because it was the easy thing to do.
So Charlie was, to my knowledge, Charlie was probably the most consistent of everyone as far as the training is concerned, and making sure that he got his training in. What was it for you, Charlie, that drove you to make sure that no matter what, you got your training in?
Probably the same reason I hired a coach. I was not trying to I wasn't hiring a coach to be competitive or to try to podium or set any, records. I'd never done one. And so I wanted someone that had been there to be able to help keep me on track. And so in that same vein, I was training a little bit out of fear, I guess, that I didn't want to miss. I don't know. I just didn't want to break the training regimen. And I guess just thinking if I missed a few days, I'd slip or you miss enough. And I know myself well enough. I've done exercise in the past that if I start missing a day or two here and there, it's just a matter of time before I start justifying it enough to quit altogether. So some of my motivation was simply just to stay on task and to I knew there was an end in sight, though it seemed far away at first. So that kind of really kept me on, keep doing it.
Any other thoughts about the training aspect of it? Why is it important that we do the training? Shad, were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going back to talking about consistency and whatnot. It's really, it's interesting, just time of life. So I've got 3 kids that are right in that phase of they're into everything, sports and dance and gymnastics and, whatever you can think of, they're into it. And so there were a lot of times during this where the training, interfered with or conflicted with something that was going on that wasn't just their training. They had an event that, as a parent, you want to be at, and in order to be at that, you'd have to miss training. So you have to make a decision on that. And I think, by virtue of my job as well, my training was a little more erratic as far as like what time of day. Sometimes I was able to get up and go and train in the morning time before work, and sometimes I had to be at work early enough that I didn't. And so then I'd train at night, and then getting up the next morning after training at night was tough, and just back and forth on that. But no, as far as like, why is it important to do the training? I mean, really for several reasons. One, hard to get ready for something that big if you haven't put in time towards it. I think that's the biggest thing, really.
The training, the work you put in for the training is the whole process, just like anything else. You see it with the church, the reading the scriptures and the praying and the paying your tithing and you doing all that stuff is the work you put in, and then the race is the reward, the church sees to be eternal life.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the I like that thought process as you're looking towards an end goal. Focusing on the process, rather than focusing on the end goal and what may or may not happen. I think we're more successful if we focus on the process, and that's what all of you ended up doing. Even though you had distractions, what I like the most is that even though you had training days that you missed, whether it was 2, 3, or 4, or a whole week that you went without training, it didn't stop you from training, right? You got right back at it, even though you fell short on different days.
Yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Stacy.
I would interrupt you.
Yep.
My coach that I technically hired or whatever is a buddy of mine, Owen Schott from Jacksonville, and he had helped me before, and he actually roomed with me when I went to the half Ironman, just because my wife couldn't go at the time, and that's how we kind of got to be friends. Really didn't know him much other than that before, but he is a pro cyclist, like 3-time national champion. Races all over the world. That's what he does. He coaches, and he told me from the get go, and he told me when they trained him before, he's like, life's gonna get in the way. Don't let it get into your mental game. Just go with it. You're gonna miss workouts. Just don't let it get to you, and just overcome them. Just don't let you. Mainly, he talked to me a lot about the psychological part of it a lot too. Is a lot of that was physical that day, but a lot of it was mental on how to overcome all that. So that's kind of why I leaned on him a little bit. To be honest with you, most of the time we use Charlie's workouts just because Owen was trying to make me a pro cyclist, and I'm not that. His workouts were just, really, really tough. I probably would have done a lot better had I done them, but either way, I mean, it was good to have his little bit of knowledge there. But Charlie's guy was awesome with his workouts that he had.
Right. So let's talk about race day. So what was the excitement? Were you nervous? Was there any doubt in going into it that you would complete it? So let me know your thought process going into race day.
Shad, I'm gonna let you take this one on when they were talking about it at athlete briefing. I thought you had a good perspective.
Oh,
do you remember?
I don't remember.
Where they were talking about the time cutoffs and stuff. Okay, how about I just say it then?
Yes, say it for me. I have so many good thoughts that it's hard to remember all of them.
So I had done the math as I was training. I mean, you spend enough time on the spin bike or running or whatever, you got plenty of time to think. And I knew that there was an overall time cap, but there were time caps for each discipline. So swimming, there was a cutoff there. There was a cutoff on the biking, and there was a cutoff on the run. And it had never really crossed my mind. Shad, you had mentioned this, what made me think of this. It had not crossed my mind about possibly getting time capped on one of the individual things until they said it in the athlete briefing. I'm like, maybe I'll be fine out of the water, but will I be okay off the bike? And then off the bike, will I be okay off the run? So that was one of the things, in my opinion, that on race day, I didn't doubt that I could do it, but it was kind of weighing on my mind when I heard that athlete briefing.
So as far as being hit by the cutoffs, so
Right.
you felt confident in completing the entire race, but started kind of second guessing the cutoff times a little bit as far as being able to do that. Anybody else? Any other thoughts going into race day? Were you nervous at all, or pretty confident?
I was actually the calmest I've been before any race. I've never slept better before race than I did before this race, and I don't really know why. It being the biggest, most important one I've ever done. I don't know if I was overconfident or if I just didn't really care if I finished or not. If I just knew that I was there and I was going to go and do the best that I could. So I got a really good night's sleep that night. I'd done all the math in my head, like Charlie said before. I knew that my swim pace was going to be fast enough. I knew that I didn't really have to be that fast on the bike to do the bike cutoff in time. And it was all going to come down to whether I could finish the run in time or not. So I wasn't, I don't know why. Like I said, I don't really know why, but I wasn't nervous at all the night before.
Yeah, I was nervous on the run, the whole run. I mean, ever since me and Charlie been training, I knew I'm not a runner. And I was just trying to see if I could bank as much money, as much time on that run that I could. I said, if I can get 15 or 20 or 30 minutes extra from the swim, and I can finish the bike in X amount of time, that'll add all that to the, basing it off of those cutoff times. I'll have all my time at the end. That'll give me plenty of time if something happens that I can complete it. And Charlie was the encourager on that because, he was on our long runs. He'd run and come back and get me. And, I did beat myself down. I was like, man, Charlie's out here running 5 minutes faster than me a mile. And on long runs, one day he ran 21 miles. And mine was like 12. Now he ran a little bit long. He ran a little bit longer. I ain't gonna lie, but he was running a lot faster. So I was trying not to let that get me down, but I just kept in my mind, and this is my, Charlie would say, this is your race, run your race. And I think you said a couple of times, Jackson, the tortoise and the hare. And I kept playing that back that whole time, but in my mind, I knew the cutoffs, and I was trying to bank as much time as I could. And, but it worked out.
I wasn't nervous leading up to it. Like I said, you had the little jitters, but I wasn't like overly nervous. I knew that we had put in a lot of time, into training for it, and I knew based on the times that we've been doing in training that I should be fine. And then I woke up the morning of the race and had a cold, and then I got a little nervous.
Oh wow! Yeah, that's not good.
That threw the nerves up a little bit.
Right.
The day before the race, so you have to. I don't know if you're going to get into this, but it's kind of interesting, and I didn't know this till we started looking at it and signing up for it. That they require you to come in 2 days ahead of time, so you got to be there Thursday, and then of course all day Friday, and then the race is not till Saturday. But for Thursday we got there and met up, talked a minute, and Shad said, "You guys all want to go on a little ride in the morning just to kind of get our legs loosened and stuff?" I said, "Sure." So I went riding. I won't hash out the whole ride, but when we showed up, Shad was wearing a knitted hat underneath his helmet, and then the most gosh awful looking Christmas jersey I've ever seen in my life, and it was hilarious. Shad wins the award for the best outfits. Race day, he won a zebra upper and lower outfit, white and black zebra outfit. 100% sure he was the only one that had that on of the 25.
Yeah, hey, I knit that hat myself, but I did not knit the jersey. So
Good. sorry, I know that wasn't the question, but I had to.
No, yeah, absolutely. Well, for those that know Shad, knows that's right in line with his personality, right? And his
it doesn't bother him at all.
and a matter of fact, for our viewers, if you look real close and maybe take the opportunity to zoom in on the background of Shad's, you can see him. He's standing, and he's what exactly are you holding there?
There's a birdhouse.
Yeah, okay.
And my granddad's handsaw from probably 1920 something. And anyway, it's just a nice portrait of me in a full suit building a birdhouse.
Of course. Classic. What else would you have in your house?
Yeah.
I've got a couple of other interesting. We'll do a tour sometime. But I've got a couple.
There we go.
Sarah gave me free range to decorate one room in the house,
and you took full advantage of it.
Good job.
Yeah. All right. So as you're getting ready, as you're standing there getting ready to enter the water, so if y'all want to start talking about the race part of it, going in the water, did you look around and feel like you belong, and did everything go according to plan, or were you thrown some unexpected challenges of any kind?
I'm a super early bird, so as soon as they opened transition that morning, I was actually there 10 minutes or so before they opened transition, and Drake walked up about the same time. And I'm always afraid on the swim that I'm going to get dehydrated, because it's, drinking the salt water while you're swimming is not great for you. So I was hydrating early, and then I had to pee like a racehorse. I had my wetsuit on, so I wouldn't have to wait and put it on, later. And I was like, what am I going to do before we get in the water? Because I have got to pee. So pitch black. I just went down and got in the water when it was still pitch black. And I was like, I gave the excuse that I was just, trying to accustom myself to the temperature, but really I was warming the water up just a little bit for everybody else too. So that was my pre-race. I was not nervous about the race so much as where I could go use the bathroom.
That's funny. Anybody else? And so at this point, just kind of take me through your race process. What's going through your mind as you're going through the swim, bike, and run? Do you hit any blocks there, whether it's mental blocks? Do you get to a point to where you're starting to feel like, okay, I don't know if I can complete this, or do you ever face that? Does your body start to shut down at all? What kind of experiences do y'all have during this race day?
So, that morning, like Shad said, we got down there pretty early with me and Shad, but standing in the chute, you're lined up with all these other athletes standing around you. I'm looking around. Everybody's in super shape. Everybody's super fit. And I kind of look like the Michelin man there in my wetsuit, all, like I might have farted or something that didn't come out, just had me blew up. But hopefully I can be an inspiration to those around me that look at me and say, if he can do it, I can do it. If he can do it. So, yeah. But, the water actually felt great. The temperature of the water, I think, was a little bit warmer than the air temperature, but it was cool enough that we all got to wear a wetsuit still. And so that was nice. So we got out there and you get to swimming. And I had swam the day before, just to kind of get a feel for the course. And the currents had shifted race day. And I feel like when we were coming back in after the last turn, the current was really in our face. And we had to really fight hard to get back into the shore on that last, 700 yards or so that it is coming back in on the last turn. So that was pretty tough. And then we get out there on the bike course, go through transition, and I'll let Shad tell you about his transitions because he took a little bit longer than everybody else. But I just didn't do a full change. I stayed right in my one-piece suit that I had on. So I had a quick transition, got on the bike. I knew that I was going to need every second that I could spare, so I didn't dilly-dally in there. But you get on the bike, and we knew going in, you look at the weather, that was going to be a headwind for a good portion of the first part of the bike ride, and a pretty strong headwind. So, you fight that the whole way out, going out, and so you're going a little bit slower than you kind of expected. your time will be, but you're prepared for it. You're thinking at the turnaround point, at some point you're going to get the tailwind behind you to push you back in. And I kept looking I knew Shad was way faster than me on the bike. He always has been. So I kept looking for him to pass me on the bike. I kept looking for him to pass me on the bike. And, I don't know when Charlie came out, but I never saw him on the bike. He got that far ahead of me. But Stacy passed me, eventually. And I kept looking for Shad to pass me before. He never did. Somehow I got off the bike before Shad did.
Did you see?
You gonna blame it?
You saw
I did.
Stacy?
Yeah,
I did see Stacy. Yeah. He passed me. Yep. He called me out.
You saw him, Stacy?
Yeah, I talked to him. I spoke to him.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Well, I hadn't recognized the suit there, his tri-suit that he had on. I guess he wore it. I think he wore it one day when we were swimming or something. Anyway, I did.
I had the full. Yep.
And I looked and I said, "That's Shad right there." I think it was about the first aid station somewhere close right there on that road.
No, 17, 18, somewhere around there. I think. Yeah.
I had to yell out to Stacy. He didn't notice me in my outfit.
Right. He blended in.
I think Shad and I were the only two people on the whole course that had our lights on our bike going. So there's a couple out and back sections, and when I turn around, I can see his light flashing coming at me. So.
Sorry, I cut you off. You were telling about the ride, Drake.
So anyway, so we get there, and the ride is a little bit harder probably than I expected it to be. I'm kind of a little bit behind my expected, worst case scenario pace, and get through to where the turnaround point where the wind's going to be at my back. So I think, and the wind has shifted and it's in my face the whole way coming back in. So the
Holy cow.
whole entire 112 miles, I think I had the wind in my face, or at least it felt like I did, so I was probably a little over an hour worse than what I thought my worst case scenario time was going to be on the bike. And so I really, at that point, I really didn't think I was going to make it, the run portion of the cutoff. So, but I come back in, I didn't change again to the run. I just put my shoes on and took off into the run. And as you're going, you're kind of calculating your pace every mile. You look at your watch and you say, I got this long until the cutoff. I got to do this speed at least on the miles. And you keep going and you check another mile off. I'm still on pace. And then you get down there. So it's a 2-lap course. So you go out 6.5 miles and back in twice. So you get to the end, you turn around for the first time. You say, well, that took me, this long. If I can make it 3 more laps about that same pace, I think I can make this. It's going to be close, but I can make it. I made the turnaround cutoff at the 13-mile mark, and went back out and at the 20-mile mark is when I really knew. I said, I've got a shot of making this before the cutoff. I calculated it out. And I said, all I got to do is make 20-minute miles for the last 6 miles, and I can do this. I got this. So you start coming back in, and at this point, I'm so far back in the back of the pack that there's hardly anybody else left on the course out there. There's only a handful of athletes out there. And as you come to each aid station, you get all these people that have volunteered their time to be out there, still setting up the aid station for you, for the handful of athletes that's left, still cheering you on with as much energy as they had, the first time you came by a few hours before. And so that keeps you motivated, every time you get that shot of adrenaline and energy every time you go through there. And then just random spectators on the side of the road that have been out there all day just cheering you on too, that don't know you, just out there. And so I got about 3 miles from the finish line, and this lady called up to me. She said, Blue Hawaiian. That's what everybody on the course was calling me, Blue Hawaiian, because I had a blue suit on with white flowers everywhere. And she said, I've been chasing you all day. So we finally caught me. And so she talked the whole last 5K, the last 3 miles. She talked nonstop until we got in, until we finished the race. And, I look back, and that was such a blessing, because I was in my own head. I knew I could make the time, but I was struggling and I was hurting. And for that last 3 miles, I was almost blissfully unaware of the pain and the suffering that I was going through, because she was distracting me with her talking and her conversation, and that last 3 miles were pretty good, fun last 3 miles that we made it in together. And I did end up finishing under the cutoff time, just under the cutoff time, but I made it.
Very good. That's awesome. That's again, congratulations to you. As far as the so you said you recognize that to be a blessing with her talking after the fact, not necessarily during it, right?
During the fact, that's right.
And that's true for life and blessings many times, I think.
Yes, for sure.
All right, somebody else.
I want Stacy to tell you what his bike ride was like.
Well, just a bike ride or what? No. I'll start with a swim. I mean, I will. Looking back now, I was a little overconfident in my swimming. I didn't train like I should have. I cut out on a few swims that I should have made because I felt a current a good bit of the time while swimming. My swim was not near where I thought it should have been. I did finish, but I wasn't. I was kind of down on myself after that first lap. I was like, what's my brand new goggles we bought so we wouldn't have a leaking goggle. I swam one-eyed and my left eye had to keep closed because my left goggle leaked the whole time.
Did you really?
Yes. Got kicked in the mouth. Probably about the second buoy, got kicked in the mouth, busted my lip, bit my tongue. So I tasted blood the whole, and in my mind, I'm like, sharks.
Sharks, right, yeah.
I'm like, I'm bleeding everywhere, I thought it was one in my mind, because I couldn't see. I'm like, swimming, looking with my right eye. So I swam a pretty awkward course the first, especially the first half of the lap. Once we got coming back in, I kind of had gotten used to sighting with one eye. Adjusting my goggles, I don't know what I'd done to just mess with them in the walk back to the water, and they never leaked on the second loop, so it was a little better. Getting on the bike, I felt that headwind. But the one day that I rode 5 hours on the trainer by myself, I did do some interval work, just kind of changed up instead of driving the same pace over and over and over. So that's what I did on the bike. I'd kind of hammer on it a little bit. I'd back off. I'd stand up for a little bit, just kind of changed up my pace. And what I thought was I was doing pretty good. Because Owen, my trainer on the way down there, he told me and Charlie, he's like, just don't go out too hard on the bike because you don't want to be dead. Because he was telling us about the winds. He's looking at everything, all this weather, and you turn at mile 75, you're gonna have a tailwind in. Don't be dead when you get there. He said, save enough that you can take advantage of it. He said, because if you kill yourself in the first 75 and then you just lollygag back in, then what have you done? Because you're not going to pick up that much time with that headwind. So I kept that in my mind because I wanted to take advantage of do exactly what he said. And when I got to, was it mile 75 when we turned?
Somewhere around there.
That's, and I felt that little tailwind, and, I'm running along there 23, 24 miles an hour. I'm like, and it hit me that I was like, I still get emotional now that I could do it. And then the race took on a whole different meaning. But it was a good ride back until mile 80 something. I do want to throw this out there. Charlie done real good with our nutrition this whole time, training us. These quantum bars, they were the best. Until we found out a week before the race that they don't serve quantum bars on the course.
I mean, I'd never even heard of a quantum bar. I pulled those stupid things up because it said this is what's going to be on the course. I go to wow, and we train with them the whole time, and then we find out they're not even going to be there.
Wow.
So we had quantum bars, and we had ordered these Morton Goos. So anyway, I ran out of my quantum bars by about mile 80 something, And for about two water stations, they didn't have any of the Morton gels. They were out. I'm like, how do you out? So anyway, I go to one. I was like, I gotta have something. They had a white one, the one with caffeine in it. I said, just give it to me. Well, about 5 miles later, I just didn't feel right. My stomach started hurting. Just didn't feel right. So made it on in, and they got on the run, and immediately I kept watching my work, because the whole time we run heart rate, then my heart rate would run 158 to 170 something. So I was like, I'm gonna keep it about 150, and go from there. Well, I started out, it's about 150, and I run about half a mile, and I had asked Mitzi, I said, where's Charlie at? She said, he's mile 7. I said, all right. So, you're running in a bike lane, just going to pass each other. Well, about half a mile in, I look down, my heart rate's 130. So I keep, jogging. I'm not running. And I'm trying to get my legs under me. And I look down and my heart rate's 120. I'm like, wow, I just didn't feel right. And I get on down about a mile or two in, I'm looking down and my heart rate's 90. I'm like, something ain't right. So I'm holding, trying to check my pulse. It's like boom, boom. And then I saw it was, and it wouldn't nothing. And it would boom, boom. And then nothing. I'm like, oh, I got a problem. So finally I kept looking. I walked and I looked at every person that come by, all 2,000, I think, that passed me. Because most were ahead of me. But finally seen Charlie. I said, Charlie, come here. So Charlie comes over to the side. I said, dude, you got to check me out, because Charlie with his PA background. And I said, check my pulse.
I'm a surgeon, a tree surgeon, but I'm a surgeon.
All right, okay. Well, he knew more than I knew, and I was like, just see what I got going on. Check my pulse. What you think? Charlie's like, he looked, he goes, yeah, you got something going on. Stop down there in that medical tent and see what they advise you. And I said, no. I said, if I don't make it, just tell my wife and them I love them. And he goes, no, you're going to make it.
Tell my wife and kids I love them.
Yeah, he goes, no, you're going to make it. I was like, I'm not talking about make the race. I'm talking about if I die. And he goes, no, you don't, So in my mind then, I was like, there's no way. I was like, there's no way I'm going in a medical tent. I said, at that point, after I'm done crying my eyes out over here on the bike, I was like, I'll die out here, I'm gonna finish. But I did took and walked and just took some deep breaths and try to get my heart regulated. I don't know what I had going on, some kind of AFib or irregular heartbeat. And it finally got regulated, and I'd run, I started doing some run and walk intervals. And if I ran very long, it wouldn't get back out of sync. So my watch died at, I think, 7:30, right before dark. My watch died. So then I would have to ask. I was kind of like Drake was saying, you knew how much time it had taken you, So then I started asking people, what time is it, because I was trying to base my pace off of what I was doing when my watch was working. And I was like, okay, it's 8:15. All right. And then I'd check again and just try to make that cutoff. I will tell you a funny thing. I stopped on the way back on my first loop. I stopped at about 6 different porta potties, no toilet paper anywhere. Any of y'all know I got some irritable bowels. So I stopped my wife and I said, I got to have some toilet paper. We were staying at a condo right by the one of the water stations, and she goes, well, we'll go out and we'll put a set over here and roll over here in the bushes. We're going back to watch Charlie finish. I said, good. I said, all right. So then I started going, and I'm like, I can't make it, 4 miles down there, 4 miles back just to get this toilet paper. There's absolutely no way. So
that's a bad feeling.
I said, if I can make it to Charlie's hotel, I'm going to Charlie's hotel. So Charlie was staying, I'm talking about his hotel lobby was 20 foot from the race course. So when I get to Charlie's hotel, I just veered off, went into the hotel lobby and went to the bathroom, ended up washing my face, washing my arm, washing all the salt off. I come out, I felt 100% better. And I think that's what brought me through.
Wow.
Charlie can tell you something funny because he told Jessica that I used the bathroom in their condo. And she thought I meant the actual room.
Our room is dirty. How did he get in there? I said, honey, I didn't even have a key. How do you think he went to the lobby?
But yeah, so I don't know if it's a sin with CrossFit. With Ironman to go to the hotel lobby bathroom, and I did. They had plenty of toilet paper. So, and I thought I would get emotional on the run down the chute coming in, and I didn't until I seen my wife and them. But and hear them say they were proud of me.
That's awesome.
Made it all worth it. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. As far as that mile 75 and having that headwind and then making that turn and being able to have that tailwind that you felt like, was it? And you said it was kind of at that point that you really felt like, okay, I'm gonna make this thing. I'm gonna finish it.
Yeah, because I think it was because I had broke that halfway point.
Right.
As far as the bike, I'm like, I can do it now. Plus, it kind of got a little easier with the speed and, and everything running through your mind.
Yeah.
You're contemplating all your life decisions at that point, I think.
Right.
I was. And it's just that feeling of accomplishment and doing something for yourself to, not that you want somebody to say you've done a good job or, just pretty much proving to yourself, was what it was for me. I just felt like I had done something, that was, it just hit me all at once, and then when I think back about it, I'm like, why do I cry now about something that, I guess it was just, the Lord working.
Impactful, absolutely. Absolutely. Shad or Charlie, when you want to go?
Shad, you go.
Okay.
The reason I want Shad to go is because I remember asking, so like several of us, I kind of know where everybody was on the course. And on the run, we all kind of saw each other, but, on the swim and bike, I didn't see anybody on the bike. And on the swim, of course, you could have been next to each other and you wouldn't know it in the water, really. But anyway, I remember asking Jessica or maybe even Sarah where Shad was on the bike, and I knew something was wrong because he's super strong. He's a great swimmer, and he's super strong on the bike. So anyway, I'll let him tell the story because I knew something was up.
Well, so like I said beforehand, I emptied my bladder in the ocean. Felt pretty good in that regard. I got in the water. The swim went reasonably. There were a ton of jellyfish that I was terrified I was going to get stung the whole time. And like Drake said, really the swim back in towards the beach was seemingly against the current a little bit. And so that was a little bit tough. But got out of the water at about the right pace, like about what I was expecting on my pace. Went to transition. I was planning on a relatively long transition, about 20 minutes for the first transition, because I was going to change out of my wetsuit. I wore just a small pair of underwear under my wetsuit. So I did not know that we were going to strip wetsuits and then run a quarter mile back to transition. Like at transition, so the whole beach got to see more than they wanted to. Although I will say I have a permanent sweater, so it wasn't as much open to public eyes as I thought. But
the hairiest, sweatiest man in 100-mile radius.
So, got there. I actually was feeling pretty good. Changed and got into my incognito cycling jersey, and I wanted to change because I knew the bib shorts were a little more comfortable than tri shorts are. Just a little bit thicker pad and long race, so I wanted to be in that. So I thought it was worth it to me to take that little bit of extra time and get changed. So I got on the bike, and within the first mile, I thought, well, maybe the swim was harder than I thought it was going to be. Give it a little time, and this will, it'll work itself out, and then I'll be all right. But the whole time on the bike, I never got comfortable, never got into a rhythm. And the big thing was, like I said, I woke up with a cold that morning, and I was a little worried that was going to play a role, but I felt okay. And so, it didn't scare me a whole lot. But then when I got on the bike, I could not take a deep breath. I could not expand my lungs fully without it hurting to expand my lungs fully. So it was painful. Anyway, so got on the ride, and there were a couple of times where I thought, maybe I should just, call Sarah, get her to come pick me up. But because this is not going well, and I doubt I may not finish the bike. Doubt I'm going to finish the run. But then I thought, I'm not going to quit. That's one of the things that I'm pretty good about. If I start something, I'm going to finish it. Unless there's something that comes up that forces you not to. So that was kind of my thing. I said, if I collapse, they'll pick me up. If I don't make a cutoff, they'll pull me back in. But I'm going to make them pull me off the course. And so kept going. I kept every time that there was like Drake said, every time there was first off, so Stacy came by me and talked to me, and then that was before the first aid station, and got to the first aid station. I thought, great, okay, this is where I'm going to hop off the bike for 20 seconds, stretch my leg, try and take a deep breath, get some water, go again, and it didn't help. Got back on the bike, felt just like I did before. Couldn't do anything. Every time there was a little turnaround, I saw Drake, and he was you were probably a mile and a half ahead of me.
Mile and a half, so 2 miles, somewhere right around there.
Yeah, and so every time there was a little switchback, it was like I'd see him, and I thought, man, this great. I'm nothing negative, but I was kind of expecting. He's faster than me in the water. I'm usually faster than him on the bike, so I was expecting to kind of catch up a little bit on the bike there, and I never did. And I knew that I wasn't. I mean, looking at my times, I knew that I was way slower than the pace that I was expected to be able to do. And anyway, so like you said, the headwind was terrible. That added to it. It was a headwind, 3/4 or more of the race. Mile 75 turned around. Had a tailwind, and that felt great, and it lasted for 7 miles. And for me, at least, when I crossed the bridge coming back into Panama City Beach, so crossed over the big bridge, the wind direction actually changed right there, and it was in my face again, even though we were cycling the same direction. So I only had about 7 miles there where I had a tailwind for the whole of the race. The 7 miles felt great. On my Strava that there was a difference there, but I just never felt like myself on the bike. So got back in, made the cutoff on the bike, and changed real quick and got on the run course. And I actually felt much better on the run course than I did on the bike. I mean, I was way behind, but got on the run course, and I was actually able to to run. I holding a slow pace, which I was planning on somewhere between 12 and 13 minutes, and ran the first 7 miles or so, and then I started cramping. And every mile or so, I'd try to run again, and I could get 4 or 5 steps in and just cramp. And so then I just got converted to walking. And so I was trying to walk at a pretty good pace, just like Drake. I was kind of doing the math on could I finish it or not. Was getting in my own head a little bit on whether I was going to make cutoffs, and so by the time that here's the other thing. So right as I started running, Charlie came by me, and I thought he was actually running into the finish line then. But he still had a whole other lap to go. But and I saw him the second time. That surprised me because I thought he was finished already. But he was telling me about how he was cramping. I was like, oh man, well, luckily I'm not. I'm feeling pretty good. And when he passed me the second time, we crossed some ways there. I was still running. I still felt pretty good. It wasn't but another half mile or so after that though that I started cramping as well.
Yeah, both times I saw him, he was running. I'm like, he's going to catch me at some point. So
Yeah. So I actually was feeling pretty good until I started cramping. Then I couldn't. So anyway, so then after walking, like I said, it was about mile 7 and maybe 7 1/4. So I had a good 5 miles back to the turnaround before then. So by that point, I had gotten good and in my head, and and that was I was feeling a lot of pain in my legs and in my feet, especially walking. And I had done the math in my head and pretty much came to the conclusion that there was no way that I was going to make it there and back before cutoff. And so I was going to make it to the 13 mile, and I was just, that was going to be it. And I really wanted to just tell Sarah that and have her give me a big hug and walk back up to the hotel room and let that be it. And she made me so mad because she made me keep going. And I kept going because I would, just to spite her. I kept going because I said, she's gonna put me in so much pain. I'm gonna walk all the way to the other end, and they're gonna pull me off the course. I will have walked all the way to the other end for no reason because there's no way I'm making that time cut off, and I'm gonna hold it over her head.
I'm gonna die and show her. Right.
So, I was so angry at that point because really all I wanted was for her to just give me a big hug and say, you know what, you put in a good effort. That's okay. And she did not do that at all. She was supportive and she was loving and she tried to talk me in logically into thinking it, but I'm good enough at math that I knew if I kept that pace, I was not going to be able to finish it. And I did not think I could increase my pace at all. But anyway, so I turned around, and the first halfway back to the other end, that was kind of what I was thinking. And then I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I can walk a little. I tried running. Again, every mile I tried to run. Every single mile the whole way I tried to run again and cramped every time to where I could barely walk for a little while. So I walked and picked up my pace a little bit that second half. And actually, Drake had turned around I was probably a mile behind him still. The whole race, I was about a mile behind Drake. And then at a turn, he's like, "Hey man, you better hurry if you're going to make that cutoff." And I said, "I don't know if I'm going to make it. This is as fast as I can go, but if I don't, I'm going to make them pull me off the course. I'm not going to quit. They're going to have to pull me off the course." So I got up there and I made the last turnaround for the run. And right as I turned, in fact, I'll tell you this. I was still in my head a little bit there at that, just before that turnaround, there's an aid station. And I didn't look at my watch. I didn't know what time it was, but I knew it had to be close. So I actually took a little extra time at that aid station so that if I missed cut off, they'd go ahead and pick me up and I didn't have to do that last little bit. And luckily, even with that, I made it around that the time cutoff. We got right past that aid station, and there was somebody with a clipboard that said, "What's your number? I need to write down your number." And so I thought at that point, and I asked him what time it was, and it was right at the cutoff there. And so I thought I was the last one. I was pretty sure I was the last one on the course at that point. And kept going. Like Drake said, he was a mile ahead of me, so they were still cheering for him then. By the time I got there, they were breaking it down. They had one cup of Coke on the table at every aid station. And I got that one cup of Coke every day.
Wow.
Energy all the way back. And so my biggest cheerleader that was there all day was Stacy Tyre, because I got probably halfway back on that last leg. And I don't know how long you'd been waiting at that red light after he finished and took a shower and had dinner and took a nap and then went to that red light waiting. But he was sitting in the red. Probably, I don't know. You probably just pulled up the red light there and happened to see me. I hope, because hopefully you weren't sitting in the red light waiting on me.
I'll be honest. Yeah, we were. The headlights happened to hit you, and I was like, "There's Drake. There's Shad right there."
So he yelled at me. That gave me a little bit of encouragement there, because I figured everybody else was asleep or halfway back to Waycross by that point. And, so past that, another 2 miles past that, somebody in a golf cart came by and said, "Hey man, just so you know, you're not the last one. There's 2 other people behind you." So that made me feel real good. So anyway, I limped my way back in. One of the Ironman vans pulled up beside me and said, "Hey man, let me get your number again. I just need to radio it into the front so we know who's still coming." And at that point, I thought the other people behind me must have dropped out, because why would surely the van is with the last guy on the course, right? So they literally just idled the van beside me the whole way back in the last 3 miles. And so get up there to the last little section where the road is blocked off, and it's the last little finish. And I was still pretty upset because I knew I'd trained enough to do, not to be competitive at all, but to be where it wasn't a close finish. And I was a little upset until I turned the corner and I saw my wife there, who had forced me to do that last lap. And at that point, I was so grateful to her that she made me keep going. I was so grateful that she would not take what I thought I needed at that minute, which was just a hug and good job, come, it's okay. That's what I thought I needed. And she did not take that. She knew me well enough to know that I was going to hate myself and done that. And so she gave me the motivation one way or another to keep going. And I did. I broke when I turned the corner and saw her standing there on the edge. And everybody that had already been asleep for 3 hours knew that I was about to finish, because she made sure to yell out enough to hear that. And that was a big deal. And luckily I crossed the finish line there. And I don't know if any one or two other people finished behind me. Somebody said there was at least one more that finished behind me. So I wasn't the last one.
The last one, right?
There was.
But I was staying close.
Well, that's awesome, man, and great job to your wife for knowing you and realizing that, hey, I know you're hurting right now, but I also know that you can do this.
Yeah, right. And honestly, when I turned that corner, I saw her. The thought that came into my head was like, how did she know to force me to do that? How did she know, with the emotions that I was demonstrating to her, although I tried not to say anything negative, it was visible that I did not really want to keep going at that moment. And so, but how did she know to keep putting that pressure on me to make me go? And whatever it was that made her do that, I'm really grateful for her for making me do that. She was probably the only person that could have made me keep going at that point, because in my head I'd already done the math. I knew I wasn't going to make that last cutoff, and I must have only been by a minute or so, but I snuck it in there. So.
Very good.
To tack on to Shad's story a little bit, whenever I turned around at the first turnaround, or the second turnaround, 13 miles, and I saw Shad coming, I was doing the math for him in my head too. I said, dude, you got to hurry. I said, you got 45 minutes to make this turn, this last mile, to make this cutoff, Then I saw him at the other end of the race, so right at mile 20. I was probably mile 21. He was mile 19, about a mile from the last turnaround there. I said, dude, you can make this. I said, you can make that turnaround. And he said, no, I can't. They're going to come pick me up. And I said, that's not good. So, I got all the way through, and I finished. And I said, I went up to Sarah. I said, have you heard from Shad? I don't think he's going to make it. And she said, the Ironman tracker says he's at mile 23. And I said, that's awesome. I was insanely proud of him for pushing through what had to be a hard, horrible day for him. And that just, that made the whole race worth it to me, just for him to put forth that effort and push through and do something that he definitely didn't want to be doing.
Right. Wow. That's impressive. That's impressive, man. Great job. Charlie, what you got?
I wish I had gone before Shad now. My story's not near that. Dang it. So, obviously I have not, unlike these boys, I have not done any, that's not true. I've done one triathlon at locally here in town about a few months before the race. But so all this was kind of new to me, other than the training. Obviously, we all did a bunch of training, but
Charlie was pretty much couched.
He won his age group. But he won his age group in that triathlon he did, by the way.
Did it really?
Yeah. There were
the one at Lars Walker.
The one at Lars
Walker.
For real?
Yeah.
We'll talk about this.
Yeah, I think I picked up a medal for you because you left before they did the awards.
Yeah,
You've never given it to me.
Yeah. I'll ask her where that's at. She's probably got that somewhere too.
So anyway, all this was kind of new to me. I knew I was a pretty good runner. Biking was probably second, and swimming by far was my weakest point. So I was pretty nervous about the swim. Never done an open water swim prior. Well, the day before, Stacy and I got out in the water waist high and just swam kind of parallel to the beach. I mean, you could literally stand up anywhere, and we just swam 300 yards or something and got out. And Stacy was about to freeze to death. He had a wetsuit on, I did, and he was not wanting to be there. Anyway, but I was nervous. I really and sincerely I was nervous because A, I wasn't a good swimmer. B, I'd never done really an open water swim, and then lastly, I'd never swam with 2,500 people hitting you and kicking you and your arms touching and all that stuff. Current, all that. I didn't know how to handle any of that. My coach was from Louisiana and surprised me and showed up for the race, which was really cool. Drove 6 hours from his hometown, and so right before the race, he came up. He saw us 2 or 3 times during the race, and he'd always, kind of give us little pointers, whatever. And he asked if he could have a prayer with us for the race. Pretty touching. I was so thankful for that. He had a little prayer for us, and I just thought, I just want to stay calm and just know my stroke cadence and just maintain that, no matter what happens. So anyway, Stacy and I started literally together. They were starting us 4 at a time. Every 4 seconds, they were sending people into the surf. 4 seconds behind you, somebody else coming. And just ran through the surf, started swimming, and swim turned out to be my very best that I've ever done. And absolutely, I didn't notice a current. I mean, I probably should have. If I was a better swimmer, I'd notice the current. But I really didn't notice the current going out, turning, or coming back either time. But I had an excellent swim. I probably wasn't the best in the world, but for me, it was a very good swim. Got out and ran up the beach. And like Shad was saying, there's volunteers. There's 30 volunteers right as you come out of the sand onto the sidewalk, and they're called pullers. And everybody's saying, sit down, sit down. And their whole job is to yank your wetsuit off from the top, just pull it off of you and hand it back to you to let you run in transition. And all I could think about was, please let my bathing suit stay on underneath. Because if everything comes off, there are 200 fans around just staring right at you, getting yanked naked. So thankfully it stayed on. They handed it to me. I go into transition, and then surprise number 2, around the corner, right as I'm headed into transition, my neighbor right behind me, Dr. Bob Pilcher, had driven over from Albany to watch me. So around the corner, and he says, Charlie. I'm like, Bob Pilcher, what are you doing here?
Let's go, Charlie!
Come on, Charlie!
What's up, Bob Pilcher?
And anyway, so that was kind of cool to see him there. And anyway, ran a transition, kind of uneventful there. I did not, unlike Drake, I didn't stay in on any of the run, bike, or swim. I had three costume changes, if you want to call it that. Changed completely out of my wetsuit, stripped down, stark naked in the tent, and put my riding pants on and left. I was trying to, because I didn't have a power meter. On a lot of bikes, they'll have power meters. Most of these guys, I think, have them where you can tell your wattage of how hard you're pushing. I've never trained with that and didn't have that, but I was just trying to maintain a heart rate. It's kind of what I trained on, and I wanted to maintain a decent heart rate. The first 20-ish miles, for whatever reason, did not feel comfortable. I don't know if I was a little bit gassed from the swim. I didn't feel gassed, but I feel like I couldn't get into a rhythm, and maybe it was the headwind. I don't know. It felt unusually uncomfortable. Heart rate wasn't bad. It just felt harder than normal, and maybe it was the headwind. I don't know. But after about 20 miles, I started feeling like I was getting in a groove, and so it was kind of smooth sailing. I thought the bike went really well. I had a headwind, like they were saying, to the turnaround. The turnaround, maybe I don't know what, I felt like it was a tailwind a lot of the way back, and maybe it wasn't, but I was
I
running.
think we were just so far behind you that the wind shifted after you were already through.
I don't know if that's true, but seriously, a good bit of the way I was running like 20. I mean, I was probably averaging 23, 24, and maybe like Shad said, maybe it was only 7 or 8 miles. When you're out on a bike for 6 hours, you lose track of time. But, anyway, several times on the course, because people can track you, Jessica and Dr. Pilcher would be out on the bike course. I mean, they'd get ahead of me, and I'd hear somebody yelling and look up, and they're on the side cheering for me as I came by. I felt like I looked like a professional athlete down an arrow, and all the videos I saw them looked so dumb, like I was doing 3 miles an hour on a bike. It did not look very impressive at all, the videos Jessica took. So anyway, about mile 82, then again on 86, and then again somewhere in the 90s, right quad, on the inside of my right quad, cramped up pretty intensely to the point that I'd never had it in training, so I didn't know what was going on. I stuck strictly to our nutrition and hydration schedule that we'd been training on. But when it locked up, I didn't know what to do. So I backed off to an easier gear, started kind of spinning a little higher, easier pace, and it went away. So I didn't think anything of it. It happened 3 times on the bike. And then somewhere 95, 97 it happened. And then after that, nothing again. I'd get back up to normal pace, normal gear, and it was fine. Didn't think anything about it. Got back in transition right at 6 hours, which is kind of what I thought I would do. And handed off my bike. Should have been my telltale sign. I had not peed at all. And even when I got off the bike, handed away my bike, I didn't really have to pee then. I saw a porta potty, so I probably ought to try to pee. And I went in and peed about 60% of the toilet, 40% all over myself. And then got back out of the porta potty and went to transition and changed. Felt decent. I mean, didn't feel great, but I didn't feel terrible. And took off running, and I mean a mile and a half, maybe less. That right quad started cramping again, and I'm like, oh, dang. I just think my nutrition, hydration, not what it should have been. And so I just, like all of them were saying, you kind of start doing math, and you kind of have a head game, and I'm like, I've got 24 and a half miles left of this. What do? Do you push it and push yourself to the point that you can't run at all or can't walk? So I walked a little bit, and I could push off. I could do little walk runs, but not much. I mean, after I probably take 15 or 20 steps, my quad would start locking up again. So it was just, and I looked at my watch. I'm like, well, I've done well enough on the swim and run that I could walk the whole marathon and be okay. But I wanted to have a decent time. I knew that was my strongest discipline. And I'm like, I mean, now it's time to figure out what to do. And so on the course, so I didn't see anybody on the swim or I will tell you that when I came out of the swim, I asked everybody, hey, are my head or behind the guys? Suggesting we hadn't seen anybody yet. So I assumed I was ahead of them, but I didn't know that for sure. And then again on the bike, when I saw her on the bike, I'm like, where are they? And she goes, well, we hadn't seen anybody yet. So I assumed I was ahead of everybody, but I didn't know that. I was,
So you're either dead last or way ahead. So.
Well, can I say this, Charlie? Well, I did see Mitzi and them when I was like, hey, have y'all seen Charlie? I'm over trying to conversate with them and trying to fix my goggle, and they're like, yes, go. He's about halfway done. Go. He's done halfway back around.
So anyway, I'm on the run, and this was when I got to see everybody. I saw everybody on the run. I saw Troy, but every time I saw somebody, I was walking. I mean, it was terrible because I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, dummy, just run. But every time I try to run, the old quad said, I don't think so. And so anyway, it was just walk, run a little bit. Of the 26, I haven't looked at my data. I would guess of the 26 miles, I bet I ran 6, maybe 7 or 8. Not much. I mean, it was a lot of intervals, but a lot more walking than running.
Gotcha. Wow.
And so kind of two couple funny things on the run. One is I see Stacy. First thing Stacy says is, dude, I've got palpitations. Check me out. So of course I'm doing an exam on the side of the road to Stacy. I see Shad. Both times I see Shad, he's running. I'm like, what the heck's wrong with me? I'm walking like a baby. And then every time I saw Drake twice. Both times I saw Drake. You want to talk about motivating? Dude, high fives. He goes, dude, we got this. The next time he high fived me, about took my arm off with his big old muscle. His hands like bricks. And I'm like, this dude is pumped up about this. I mean, he was way more motivated than I was on the run at that point. And so that was pretty motivating to see Drake. He knew he had it, and he was glad to be there. And I was not so happy to be there at the time. But, the last loop in, I passed a guy. I didn't recognize him. He didn't recognize me. But so again, I'm walking and running. Well, this guy comes up next to me and he says, "How you feeling?" And I said, and I'm walking. I'm like, well, not terrific, or I wouldn't be walking. He goes, "Yeah, me too." So he walked beside me and we talked for just a little while. And he goes, "I'm gonna run on ahead." So I said, "All right, fine." So I mean, we were only together probably 15, 20 seconds, and he ran on. And so again, walk, run, and you begin to see some of the same people as you kind of ebb and flow back and forth with walking and running. Well, just before I got to the last turnaround, which would be 6.5 miles back to finish the race. Oh wait, back up just a minute. The first time I knew when I started cramping and I was running out, I knew Jessica was tracking me, and I'm like, I'm sure they think I'm dead or I've sprained my ankle or whatever. Well, I get back in, and Bob Pilcher sees me, and he's an orthopedic surgeon, so he's telling me, he's like, "What's wrong?" So he's kind of getting the history from me as I'm walking. I'm like, my quad's locking up. He says to me, "Just don't bend your knees. You'll look like Frankenstein, but you'll be able to run if you just run the straight." He must be running, like this. And I said, "I'm sorry, I've got too much pride to run like a fused knee man for the next 20 miles." So, but anyway, the next time, I think that time, I turn around, and as I'm coming back, my coach saw me, Jessica saw me. Coach says, "You're this cramping is not going to go." Well, you can't get any outside help. You can't have headphones. You can't have a cell phone on. You can't get outside help from anyone. Well, so I turn around. As I'm turning around, I'm walking back by where Jessica and my coach are. Jessica comes up next to me. She's walking with me on the course. And she says, "How you feeling?" I said, "Not great." And I said, "But I'm not quitting this." I mean, at no point did I think I was quitting. I'm like, if I have to finish with bloody nubs dragging my body, I'm finishing this thing. So she says, "Hold my hand." So I hold her hand. Well, she's got something in her hand. She says, the coach says, "You can't have this, but take it." So I take it. I take one every 30 minutes. So I look in there. I'm like, "The heck is this?" And it's salt tablets. So I take one. Of course, I can't swallow the dang thing. I'm another mile from a water station. I'm just kind of mulling around my mouth. Anyway, I try to. They start hurting my stomach. I'm like, I ain't taking this trash. Literally throw it in the trash can. About 3 or 4 miles later, I see Stacy again. And Stacy's like, "Dude, I'm dying. Where are those salt tablets?" I'm like,
Well, he offered them the first time I seen him.
Oh, yeah.
"Hey, I got some salt tabs. You want some?" I was like, "No, I'm good.
Oh, that's right.
Right after I passed him, my calves started cramping. So I was like, if I see Charlie, I'm getting them salt tabs. I'm getting them salt tabs.
So I chunked those stupid things. I wasn't going to get DNF for no old cheating. So anyway, I turn around, last turnaround, 6.5 miles back. And right before I get to the 6.5 miles, the same guy comes up beside me. And I notice him then. I'm like, "Jimmy, it's you again. How did I pass you?" He goes, "I don't know when you passed me." So I'm telling you, it was my ministering angel. This dude, we turned around. He lives 30 minutes from there. He's done 13 or 14 Ironmen before. And so we talked, about each other's families, whatever. And we walked around the whole way back. And so I said to him, in fact, one time I asked somebody on the course, I didn't ask him what time it was. I said, do you have a calculator on you?" And the guy's like, "No." I said, "You've got a cell phone. Open up your So the guy's walking beside me, and I said, "What's 15 times?" I was just trying to figure out what my pace was and how far I had to go if I'd make it back in time. So he was doing this math for me, telling me the math. Anyway, in my mind, I thought I was going to finish closer to 16 hours, but I knew I'd finish in time. And I don't know, but anyway, when we turned around, Jimmy said, "We should finish somewhere in the 13s." I'm like, "Jimmy, you're doing your math wrong, dude. I don't think that's right." He goes, "No." He starts doing math. I'm like, "Seriously?" So then I started getting motivated. I said, "Can we finish in 13 and a half?" He goes, "We're going to have to pick it up if we do." So we kind of run, walk the whole way back. And he stayed with me the whole time. I mean, it really, I promise you, it was what I needed, like Drake saying at the time. It was an angel sent to me. Jimmy is a minister. He's a church in somewhere just, like I said, 30 minutes away. But anyway, we kind of all the way back, just kind of walked around. And I said, when I get close, I will be running. There will not be any walking up, because they make a really big deal. I mean, it's probably for 16th of a mile. They've got it, just gated off, and there's literally a red carpet and big spotlights, and they've got spotters that look at your race number and call it in and say race number so-and-so. So they're calling your name. They're saying, Shad Stormant from Waycross, Georgia is an Ironman. And they make it's kind of cool what they do as you come across the finish line. But it was a sweet victory to pass there. There was a girl, I should have waited because Jimmy told me, he said they make a big deal out of it. Savor that moment because that's you worked hard for that. And I saw a girl that was 20 feet ahead of me, and I should just let her run ahead and then let her get the glory, her glory and me. But I was close to her, so they kind of said, whatever, Jane Doe, Charlie Moore. And so as I'm coming across, in fact, my neighbor says to me the other day here in Waycross, Jess had the video and posted it. He's an older guy. He goes, "Charlie, two things. I'm super proud of you for that Ironman." I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "But couldn't you have beat that girl?" So anyway, Bob Hefford said that. But anyway, it was really good. And I'm telling you, here's what I thought of when I crossed the finish line. No joke. I thought about it. I was thankful for how I was able to do it injury-free and was able to finish it. And then I thought about all of you boys. I promise you, I thought, man, there was a lot of hours put in. And I know myself well enough to know I wouldn't have stuck with it. I mean, in all sincerity, I stuck to a pretty regimented training plan, but I know that I probably would at some point tapped out because it gets. I mean, we've all got full-time jobs. We're not professional athletes. We've got we're dads and we're husbands and involved at church and stuff. So there's a lot going on to just, and that's what will probably keep me from not doing it again. And maybe when I retire one day or something, but the training, not the race, the training and the long hours of training is probably what will keep me from doing it anytime in the near decade.
Well, those are awesome, really, really good stories. All of your experiences are similar, but also slightly different. And I think that's a similar thing for life. And so speaking of life, what life lessons do you take away from this? And did you learn anything about yourself that you might not have been aware of? Any of you?
There's a couple of them. I thought about it quite a bit. I like to, in the church, talk about a lot, endure to the end. And so I think the endurance sport that we all participated in has a lot of similarities with that in life as well as in the sports. You have to put in the work before the race day if you want to be able to finish the race. So we have to put in the work in life too to achieve our goals. And then we need people around us to support us and motivate us. We wouldn't have been able to finish it without each of us. But not just that, the strangers out there on the course that was cheering for us and the volunteers at the aid stations that were motivating us, they were key to me being able to finish that race and many other people. And it's that same way in life. I think too often we find it a lot easier to make a cut and remark about somebody rather than building them up. And in life, we need to be more supportive of each other if we want each other to do better and to feel better. In the triathlon community, I found that most people are very supportive. in the first race, I'm not a very outspoken person. I don't go out of my way like Shad does to talk to everybody. But I found out that in the triathlon community, a lot of people will build you up. People you've never seen before in your life and you'll never see again. You pass them, they pass you, and it's, hey, good job, keep it up. They're going to lie to you and tell you you're looking good and you're looking strong. But it's motivating, and you need that. So I've tried to do that a lot more. And like Charlie said, when I passed him, I was giving out high fives. It wasn't just him. It was everybody. Anybody who would make eye contact with me, I want them to finish. I want them to have their best race and get that little bit of motivation that I can give them, and because I need that myself. And it's that same way with everything we do in life. We should be that way with the person when we see we're greeting it when we walk in Walmart. We should have that same joy greeting them as we do anything else, and motivating them to continue on as well. And so I think that's a good life lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would tell anybody that if they were wanting to do it, just get them a Charlie Moore.
Right.
You do need a training partner. I promise you that.
Yeah.
I agree. I would say, even though I'm kind of dependent on somebody else, I would say you need a training partner to keep you.
I mean, even in the day-to-day getting up and being there and being accountable, as Charlie is always, we all know, is a motivator and an encourager. Because like I said, I'm not a runner, and he encouraged me from day one till November 4th, to on my running. And because Jackson, remember we talked about it a few times. Jackson, like I said earlier, Jackson's like this turtle on the hair. And I don't know if I haven't talked to Jackson, but I was going to wait. And the whole time, like I say, Charlie's over running 5-minute miles further, faster than me. 5 mile, he's running 7.5. I'm at 12.5. I'm like, hey, just try not to get beat down, just knowing who I am and what I got to stick to. And then at the end of the day, my average, Charlie's was 13:12 minute mile, and mine was a 13:16.
Wow.
There you go.
So, at the end of the day, anybody out there, just it's an encouragement to not saying that I'm glad that Charlie had his cramps, but anybody can do it.
But you kind of
Charlie
are,
would,
right?
yeah, I am. I guess I'm throwing that out there, Charlie. But I'm just, at the end of the day, had I took the fact that, and Charlie wouldn't have helped me see past that I'm a slow runner and I'm just beating myself down for 8 months. Had he not kept encouraging me to keep pushing through, if you're a 12-minute mile or a 13-mile runner, well, that's what you're going to be. Do it. Train for that. I might have been even slower, or may have just quit altogether. Just give up on myself. But he kept me accountable, and we made it.
Yeah, I think that's where we it's what holds us back a lot of times in life, is that we're comparing ourselves to others versus just it's you. What do you compare to yesterday, right?
Right.
And you're trying to improve the next day.
Right. And I was comparing, and I'm bad about that. Everybody is. I compared myself at the beginning, and then I compared myself at the end, and I looked and I was like, hey, look what you did.
That's
not
right.
saying that, I understand Charlie walked the whole time, and I'm comparing myself to a broken Charlie, but I almost beat a broken Charlie. Let's take into fact he did finish 2.5 hours ahead of me. But I didn't look at that number.
I think I am here's what I learned about myself. Well, I think I'm a decent athlete at stuff that I've tried in my life, whether it's golf or basketball or whatever. And it sort of hurt my feelings that when I got in the pool, I was not good. There's
one lap.
I really could swim 25 yards, and I had to hang on the side of the pool and get my breath. And especially all three of these guys, I never saw Troy swim, but all three of these guys are great swimmers. And so I'm in a pool, and Jackson was – of course, it took Jackson about 2 weeks to figure out, I just breathe every other time and I can swim for 6 miles. And I didn't pick it up that quickly. And it was driving me nuts. I felt like I've been able to work and can pick up biking. I've been a runner for a long time, whatever. So my biggest accomplishment of all of this was being able to swim 2.4 miles. I mean, I don't even care if I would have done it slower than when I did it. It was a really big accomplishment for me to be able to get down some decent swimming technique and swim, and felt very comfortable in the water the whole time. I just felt like it was very, in my mind, that was my biggest accomplishment of those 3 things that I did.
Shad, how about you?
Well, I guess really the big thing was, if you have a goal, just keep pushing. Just keep pushing. It's gonna suck sometimes, but it's supposed to. It's supposed to suck sometimes. And anything that's worth it does. Anything that's worth it is hard. And so, yeah.
I found a whole dozen of crumble cookies in Shad's hotel room, and I'm not even kidding. That's probably what happened to him.
That's probably it. But that was, you remember, my wife was with me, so there's another culprit possible.
So here's, did any of you not use an aid station?
You mean on what?
On race day? Did you not utilize the aid station? Because every there obviously there's no aid station out in the water, but when you went on the bike, there was an aid station. How often?
About every 20 miles.
Yeah.
About every 20 miles.
Yeah.
Okay, and so all of you used at least 1 or 2 aid stations on the bike.
I used every single one of them.
Okay, all right. And then how about on the run? How often was there an aid station?
About
every mile, a little over a mile, yeah.
Okay, and
every one of them.
And I'm assuming you utilize those as well, right?
Grabbed a handful of pretzels and a cup of Coke.
That's okay. So what I think about is the race of life, right? And think about the aid stations that the Lord has provided for us in life, whether it's the scriptures that we have, the utilizing prayers, following the promptings of the Spirit, going to church, and each other. And He has these aid stations for us to utilize on a regular basis, and they're everywhere, right? But how often do we use those aid stations effectively in our lives? And so that's what I think about is as we run the race, this race called life. How often are we using the aid stations that are readily available to us? And so that's just something to think about as we move along in life in this. So,
One last comment.
Yeah, absolutely.
About your training.
Yeah, go ahead. How I stopped.
No. Every run and every time we rode the bike, Jackson was wearing exactly what he's wearing right now, which is the heaviest hoodie on the planet.
That's right, baby.
And that joker was, I'm not talking about in the wintertime. I'm talking about outside burning up. I'm running without a shirt, and he's got a hoodie on, running like Rocky Balboa, and I'm like, he's lost his mind.
I like my hoodies. What can I say? Absolutely. Hey, man, on behalf of all of your supporters that I know have already told you this, and everybody that takes the opportunity to listen, and that congratulations to you. Proud of y'all for taking on that challenge and completing it, and going through all the hard training and ultimately completing it on race day and everything. So congratulations to all of you.
Thank you.
Becoming Ironman.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Do any of you have any last thoughts? Any last thoughts for anybody out there that may listen?
If I can do it, anybody can do it. You know, I know y'all listening can't see me. I'm 5'9", 260 pounds. Average about a 13.5 minute mile on my regular runs, you know, so even slower on these long races like this. You know, if I can push through and get it done, then anybody can. And if any of these guys are ready to sign up for another one, I'll sign up with any of y'all.
Okay, so Drake says he'll do another one. Stacy, Shad, how about y'all? Charlie said he maybe later on in retirement.
I'm done.
You're done.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a half, or you know, but
So
that pool was a lot of work.
I'm pretty sure that I'm going to do another one. I want to do one when I'm not sick. I want to do one day when I'm not sick. But the caveat to that is I don't plan on doing one until the kids are at least in high school, when they can take care of themselves a little better.
Right.
So
Well, very good. Very good.
I'll tell you, I spent trained a little bit with Drake, a little bit more with Shad, and a ton with Stacy. And so it was though I'm not gonna miss the dang on long hours and early morning training. I'm gonna miss the time that I spent with Stacy. We spent a lot of good hours together, and you know, you're on the bike 5 or 6 hours, or you just kind of get to know each other. And anyway, good dude and a lot of fun, a lot of laughing, a little bit of crying, a lot of complaining. It was fun. I really enjoyed it.
Well, very good. Well, again, thank y'all for coming on, taking some time to share your experience with us. And congratulations again. And until next time, y'all keep on striving.